Okay, hello everybody. It's telling me that I've got a poor connection. I rang up at least 3 different providers today to try and get a better connection speed. I think my upload speed is about 20 megabytes per second. The fastest speed in England is about 70 megabytes as far as I'm aware per second, and that's when you've got the fibre optic cable connection. Unfortunately, I only have a copper connection in this house, and I've tried calling a lot of providers and everybody tells me that there's no way I can get a fibre optic connection, even though everybody else around me, all my neighbours, have fibre optics. So I'm afraid until I can sort this out, it's going to be quite a slow stream, and it's probably going to be in at a poor resolution, not a very not a great picture. But I'll carry on making videos, of course, and if anybody wants to buy me an amazing video setup or send me some money to get a new recording studio, fine, go for it. But what I don't like is comments underneath the video telling me to spend money on cameras or microphones, because it's not going to work. Okay, so common mistakes. This is episode number 67. These mistakes were made by my students during this week, in the previous week, over the last few days. So hello to Vietnam, hello to India. Look at number 1. The killer shot at them at the head. Now, I want to make it clear that shoot at someone is possible, but it's different from shoot someone. If you shoot someone, you hit them with the bullet. It goes into their body. It's a direct hit. So shoot someone is not the same as shoot at someone. Shoot at someone means aim at them, okay? Aim at someone. And so if you shoot at someone, we don't know if you've hit them or not. Maybe you've hit that person, maybe you haven't. It's the same if you throw a ball at someone. If you throw a ball at someone, we don't know if the ball hits them or not. We just know that you aimed at that person. Well, the same with shoot at. We know that you were shooting at that person, but sometimes you shoot at someone and you don't know if you've hit them or not. And so then you say shoot at. But if you want to say that you hit them, you say you shot them. So the killer shot them because the killer did hit them in this example. And we know he hit them because we have this prepositional phrase at the end. And unfortunately, we say the killer shot them in the head and not at the head. The killer shot them in the head, okay? It should be spoken like that, this particular phrase. It's because my student had been watching Sherlock Elementary, and the killer came in and put 1 bullet in one person's head and 1 bullet in the other person's head. So the killer shot them in the head. Okay, second mistake was with, again, a preposition. He was upset by Watson. Now this is quite difficult because a lot of these adjectives have a number of different prepositions which they go with, which they accompany. And if you want more information about this, you should try my video called Adjectives and Prepositions. I'm not going to link to it. It's your responsibility to write it into the search bar at the top. Remember that YouTube is a search engine like Google, and so if you write Mr. Skype Lessons, Adjectives, Prepositions, the top video will be my video called Adjectives and Prepositions. And it goes through all of this information. Now, you can be upset about something. Yeah, and I always write something ST because it's easier. You can be upset by something. Okay, and there's very little difference in meaning between upset by something and upset about something. But it's often a clause here, although it could be a noun. But remember that it's not a person. You can be upset with someone for something as well. Okay, so I would always learn any language actually, but I would always learn English in terms of large chunks and not single words on their own. It's much better to learn upset, not just as upset, but upset with someone for something, or upset with someone about something, or upset with someone, no, not by something though, no, only upset by something on its own. But here we could have for or about for that middle one. Okay, now I hope that's clear. This is why this one's wrong. He was upset by Watson is wrong. He was upset with Watson. yeah, in Sherlock. He was upset with Watson, and then we say, I don't know, I can't remember why he was upset, but maybe it was for reading his personal letters. I think it was something like that. So he was upset with Watson for reading his own letters, for reading his personal correspondence with one of his former girlfriends. Or he was upset with Watson about the fact that she read his former correspondence. But I think with Watson for is the most common. But we can say upset about something as well, and upset by something, but not upset by someone. Okay, number 3, smoking badly influences your health. We don't say it like that. It sounds to me like the student was translating from their own language, and perhaps this is perfectly okay in the student's own language, but it's not a collocation in English. And of course, when you get to an advanced level, collocations are the most important thing. Which words go with which other words, yeah? What patterns can you often hear in the language? Because I think most English speakers would immediately hear that this doesn't quite sound right, that there's something with this that is not quite right, that's a little bit clumsy or something like that. What we usually say is smoking is bad for your health, yeah? That's the way we usually put it. Smoking is bad for your health. And of course it is, it's not good. But we wouldn't say it has a bad influence on. We usually say that people have a bad influence on other people. So you can certainly say he is a bad influence on my friend, or my boss is a bad influence on some of my colleagues, yeah, something like that. And it means that that person leads them astray, yeah, to lead someone astray. Kind of phrasal verb there that might be worth learning, which is similar to be a bad influence on someone. In fact, we don't say have a bad influence on, that's a good point. We say be a bad influence on someone. He is a bad influence on some of my colleagues. Okay, so is bad for is good here though. Smoking is bad for your health. Okay, we will move out by this time next week. This is almost correct, and I think a lot of native speakers would say that's fine. But I'm perhaps not an ordinary native speaker because I teach English. And so because I teach English, I'm very focused on the tenses. And I can tell you that any time you see by plus a time expression in future, you really must use future perfect, or maybe future continuous if it's not going to be finished by that time. And so here the student really should have said will have moved out by this time next week. And the way to remember this, there's only one preposition, one signal word you really need to remember for future perfect, and it's this one, by. Of course, we also use future perfect when we give concrete future moments. We really do. We can say something like, let me give you a good example. On August the 1st, I will have already finished the project. But we very often use by, meaning at some moment before August the 1st. And by sounds better to me than on August the 1st for that kind of meaning. So please remember by with future perfect. It's very important. Number 5, I haven't come round to reading Pilyevin. We were speaking about an author, and my student wanted to use a phrasal verb, which is great because you should all be using these phrasal verbs as often as possible. And unfortunately, he made a tiny mistake here. Come round is actually, it means regain consciousness. And come round to, he came round to, you can say he came round to my way of thinking. That's one way you could use come round to. Eventually he came round to my way of thinking, meaning eventually he changed his mind and started thinking like I think. So you could use come round to like that. But what the student wanted to say was I haven't got round to. And get round to means eventually find the time to do something. Find the free time to actually do something. Okay, and so it really is get round to that Alex should have said here. I haven't got round to reading Pilyevin. Okay, on to number 6. This was one of Helen's mistakes. Sorry, I'm just going to very quickly help my cat because he can't get out. Go on, cat, off you go. Okay, that should sort him out. Helen said the vice headmistress, and vice works very well with president, the vice president, meaning the second in charge. But with headmasters and headmistresses, we don't say vice, we say deputy, the deputy headmistress. Okay, deputy is the more common way of the more common word to use with headmaster or headmistress, meaning the second in charge in a school. Okay, number 7. Every year it gets busy since the 15th of January. Unfortunately, Max shouldn't have said since here. Now, it's a very subtle mistake, this. Since is only used when you're talking about the past. Don't use since if you're talking about the present, and we know we're talking about the present because the verb's in present simple. Don't use since if you're talking about the present, and don't use since if you're talking about the future. Only use since if you're talking about last week, last month, last year, or in your childhood or something like that. So every year it gets busy starting from the 15th of January. That's what the student should have said. Okay, number 8. I have written the essays after my driving lesson. Now, this word after, quite often what that means, as soon as you use after, you're setting a timeline and you're saying number 1 happened and then number 2 happened after number 1. And when you're setting a timeline like this, you've got to be using past simple. You cannot use present perfect with this word after. It's got to be, I wrote the essays after my driving lesson. We've got to have number 1, the driving lesson, number 2, wrote the essays. It can't be have written. And so if you say after in the sentence, usually that means no present perfect. Usually that means you're ordering the events, one thing, then another thing, then another thing, which is past simple. Okay, number 9, I made him a shot. Just simply the wrong verb here. The student means an injection, because you can say shot as an injection. This was Dima. Dima, I'm afraid you've got to say he gave him a shot. The doctor or the nurse gave him an injection. The doctor or the nurse gave him a shot. It's got to be give someone an injection, give someone a shot, give someone a jab as well. We often say a jab, meaning an injection or a shot. Maybe it's in Britain more than in America, but we say a jab very often, your tetanus jab, your polio jab, and so the doctor gives you, or the nurse gives you this jab. Number 10, he wouldn't see her never again. The problem here is the double negative. You've got a negative here and you've got a negative here. So very easy solution to this one. Cross out the N and then it's fine. He wouldn't see her ever again, because then we haven't got a double negative. And remember that you can't use a double negative in English, or, well, you can, but it cancels out to a positive. Okay, number 11, he accepted to be checked with a lie detector. The problem here was the verb. The student decided that accepted was correct here, or perhaps just felt that accepted would be possible here, and it's not. You can accept that something is true when you when you admit that it's true, but you can't accept to be checked. You have to agree to be checked by a lie detector. So he agreed is the word that the student should have said, not accepted. He agreed to be checked with a lie detector. Accept is something very different. If you accept something is true, you agree that it's true. So you could accept that something is true. But when you accept, you can't accept to do something. You can agree to do something, but you can't accept to do something. So somebody's moaning about the whiteboard. Sorry, not much I can do about that. Number 12. They decided to set a trap and use a bait. You can't. This is a very subtle mistake, very, very difficult one, this one. If you don't know this word bait, please look it up in a dictionary. It's actually the stuff that a fisherman will put on the end of his hook to try to attract the fish so that he can reel in the fish, yeah? And so everybody, all fishermen use bait. Very often here, people go out on the seabed and they dig for worms, and it's called bait digging. And you can see signs on the beach saying no bait digging closer than 20 meters or something like that. You've got to go quite far out before you dig for bait. And so bait is actually uncountable. And you can't say a bait, you've got to say some bait, yeah? They decided to set a trap and use some bait. It's just not possible to use it in the singular form. Okay, I'm sorry that the light is shining on the board. Perhaps next time I'll try and get that sorted. I hope that this has made all of the mistakes clear. If anything is unclear, you can ask questions underneath. I hope to see you all soon for lesson 68. Thanks for watching.